Good morning. Get myself live on Instagram. I think. Good morning. Welcome back to Fit Body Secrets, where my mission is to bring you guys inspiration, motivation, and a ton of tips to help y'all on your fitness journey. And today's topic, I actually was sparked to think about. Well, the reason I decided to talk about this today was I had a client text me this morning and told me that she was starting to space her food out every 2 hours to help boost her metabolism. And I was like, oh, this is a topic we need to talk about in depth because I know this is something that a lot of people have questions about. So we are going to be talking about meal timing and how it's relevant to your fitness, your health, your fat loss journey, your metabolic function, and all that stuff. So if you guys have questions about anything regarded meal timing or nutrient timing and something pops up as I'm talking, please don't feel bad putting it in the comments because I want to be able to answer your questions. And before I get into today's topic, let's just talk about mood. Let's just talk about mood today because it is Tuesday. I am on vacation and I am also in a place of what the hell am I going to do with myself, which is why I'm still podcasting today. I am actually planning on getting out to the beach today, though. After this podcast, I am going to finish my coffee, which I have another topic about, and then I'm going to get out to the ocean. I am feeling, I don't know if you can relate to this. It's just been a really weird week. Like I turned 40 on Friday. I feel like that brought up so many emotions for whatever reason. I'm a day older, but I feel like I just all of a sudden my whole life just changed. Being on vacation gives me more anxiety because I don't know what I want to do with myself in my free time. All I know is I need to not be doing so much work. And yeah, I'm just in a little bit of a funk. So I just feel it. And then the next thing is, let me just tell y'all, I found this coffee syrup flavor by mistake at HomeSense. I went in there actually just looking for steak knives. And I had found steak knives, but I always, whenever I go into those places, if I see any of the flavor syrups, I'll see which ones they have to try them. And they had a salted peanut butter cookie. And let me tell you, this is freaking delicious. Like amazing. I love this. This is my new favorite flavor. And the worst part is when you find a flavor like this, you won't find it again because you go to those places, you're getting like, I don't know if they're like leftovers. I don't exactly know how those stores really work, but I know that the chance of me finding this flavor again there is slim to none. So I'm going to have to probably go online and order it, which means it's going to cost me like $2 or $3 more per bottle, which just sucks. So those are my little rants today before getting into today's topic, because I just felt like I needed to share that. I feel like I am just in like a funk right now and I don't know why. No idea. In fact, I was texting my friend this morning. I'm like, I just feel depressed and lost. Like, what do I want to do with my free time? And I think it's because I spend so much of my time busy. I don't do nothing. Even when I'm doing nothing, I'm doing something, right? Like if I'm like doing a puzzle, like I'm listening to an audio book or I'm whatever, I'm talking to someone on the phone. It's just me. I'm always doing something. So I think sometimes the easy things are actually the hard things for people. And that's where I'm at in my life. But just had to share that because it was on my heart, on my mind. And if that resonates with you. Anyways, so let's talk some stuff about, Let's talk about meal timing, what matters, all that good stuff. And I'm going to start by talking about this is why science matters more than influence. And I say that because there's so much contradictory there's so many contradictory influencers in this world, and the advice tends to contradict itself. So for instance, you've got a whole school of people that tell you that intermittent fasting is the way to better health, less inflammation, better body composition. And then you've got this other school of people that's like, you got to be eating every 2 hours to keep the body moving, to keep the metabolism going. Like, and this is where it's like, okay, if you can have both people be very, very smart in whatever it is that they are educated in, giving you very different advice, which one should you be following? And this is why it's really important to always go back to science and understand what they are pulling from science to take their quote unquote advice and make it seem applicable or effective for you. Okay, because they all do have some form of, some part of it is true, but the way that they're applying it isn't necessarily, or explaining to you isn't necessarily the reason why. Okay, so we could talk about that whole thing in another episode. But we're going to talk about meal timing today. All right. I want to start by breaking down a lot of the myths I hear about meal timing, because this is where we can get into the nuanced stuff and people focus on the shit that doesn't really matter. First and foremost, no matter what end of the spectrum you're on, fasting, not fasting, every 2 hours, eating 2 meals a day, 1 meal a day, whatever it is, okay, what matters most is your total daily intake. Like that's like the number one thing that matters most. So no matter what time of day you're eating and all that stuff, that's got to be covered first. Like it doesn't matter if that's not covered first, if you're not worried about that, all the meal timing in the world isn't really going to help you as much. However, meal timing strategies might make controlling daily intake a little bit easier. So I like to think of it like an ecosystem. It's not this to this, it's everything kind of influences each other. So one of the first myths that you're going to hear is that eating every 2 hours boosts your metabolism. And I, at one point in my life, believed this as well. I believed that, you had to eat every 2 hours, or if you're skipping meals, you're putting yourself into starvation mode and your body's going to all of a sudden conserve energy. But we're going to talk about the eating every 2 hours to boost your metabolism. Huge myth. Okay. Your metabolic function, your metabolic rate from the ages of birth up until about the age of 20 is on the increase, because we're still growing, our bodies are maturing, we are increasing our metabolism, our energy metabolism. We have an increase in that. From the ages of 20 to about 60, your metabolic function stays pretty flat, meaning like our hormones, our organs, everything has already been, like it's fully developed. We're literally just living our life. What does change metabolic function or metabolic rate would be changes in your body weight and body composition. So if you weigh more, your basal metabolic rate will go up. If you weigh more and you increase muscle, your basal metabolic rate will go up. If you lose weight, which is often a good thing for people that are overweight, your basal metabolic rate might go down a little bit. If you lose muscle, not such a good thing. Your metabolic rate will go down. But the eating every 2 hours thing is not doing anything for your metabolic function at all. Like, not at all. It's not doing anything for it. There are other purposes for eating more frequently that we'll talk about, but it doesn't do anything for your metabolic function. And adding on to that, the whole skipping meals, putting your body into starvation mode, because I also believe that too, that if I wasn't eating every 2 to 3 hours, that all of a sudden my body was going to start conserving the calories I was consuming. And that's also a myth. Like, that's not how fat storage works. But what does happen is by skipping meals, you might have less energy. So, and when we talk about the whole eating every 2 hours, you might have more energy and better appetite regulation. So that's where like meal timing from a frequency perspective might help you burn more calories, because if you have more energy, you're going to be burning more calories doing the things that you're doing. If I am feeling sluggish right now and I'm talking to you guys, I might not be using my hands. I might be sitting with low posture. I might not be as engaged in my muscle groups. Whereas if I'm fueled and fed, I might feel better. I might be moving more. So I'm burning more energy at rest. And people focus so much on the energy that they're burning in their workouts, when those are the calorie burn. Those are the calories that matter most. The calories you're burning throughout your day. That has a bigger impact on things. So eating every 2 hours isn't going to boost your metabolism, but it might keep your energy levels up. Skipping meals is not going to put your body into starvation mode. However, if your energy is constantly low, you're probably feeling sluggish, which might make you start burning less energy. Okay. Another myth you hear, that eating breakfast boosts your metabolism. And then once again, you have the people that do intermittent fasting. Like, I don't even start eating my first meal until 12 o'clock. Okay. Eating breakfast also does not boost your metabolism. As I mentioned, the only way we can boost our metabolic function is by changes in body composition or weights. But eating breakfast, again, might help give you more energy to start your day. You also should be waking up hungry, because you've been fasting for the last 6 to 12 hours, depending on when your last meal was and depending on when you went to sleep. And I know I said 6 hours because, yes, I know there are some people that don't get but maybe 6 hours of sleep. So you've been fasted for the last, 6 to 12 hours. So you should be waking up hungry. That's a sign that your metabolic function is doing well. But eating breakfast isn't going to magically boost your metabolism. And for some people in a fat loss phase, they might want to push off their morning meal because it helps them save calories for later. And sometimes that can be impactful and helpful, but it can sometimes also bite you in the ass, because if that happens where you do that and then later on in the day, now you're starving and you start to binge on foods because you're like, can't get the energy in, you just feel like you're low on energy, that could also bite you in the ass. So you want to make sure that you're using that the right way. Another myth regarding meal timing is just like eating at breakfast boosts your metabolism, eating at night suddenly makes you like store fat. Or if you eat at carbs, those carbs are getting stored as fat. Neither of which are true. The timing of your food is not going to change how your body stores the type of food that you're consuming. Okay. Whether you eat carbs at 8 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock at night, carbohydrates are still going to be converted into glycogen and stored in your muscles and liver. Like, that's not going to change. And if you eat at night, it doesn't mean that that energy is necessarily going to be stored as fat, as long as daily calorie intake is within reason. So basically, going back to the calories throughout the day matter most, it does not matter what time of day you eat the food still has to be digested, and it is going to be absorbed and then utilized throughout your day. Your calories so whatever, I think people think that the food you eat right now is what you're using right now, and it's not. Like right now, as I'm talking to you, I ate breakfast about an hour ago. My body is not using that energy right now to like do what I'm doing. It's using whatever energy that was already stored in my body, which was things that I ate yesterday and haven't burned through yet. So it's about overall daily energy that matters most. The meal timing doesn't matter. Now, what I will say is this. The reason why there is a correlation between nighttime eating and weight gain, where this whole study came from, is they did studies and they're like, we studied these people that stopped eating at night. And when they stopped eating at night, they lost weight. So I guess nighttime eating might make people gain weight. That was the conclusion. However, what do most people do when they're eating at night? They're not eating chicken and rice and broccoli, right? What kinds of foods do people usually eat at night? Likely more calorie-dense, snack-based foods and desserts. And when you remove a lot of calories from your diet, obviously you're going to lose weight. So by removing the nighttime eating, they removed a large source of calories. Correlation, not always causation. That's going to be a common theme around everything that I'm saying here, okay? Another myth going to the fasting side of things is that fasting improves autophagy, or essentially your body's way to help, turn over new cells and helps remove inflammation. And when we talk about autophagy and cell turnover, what matters most for autophagy is, believe it or not, being in a slight calorie deficit. And oftentimes people that do follow fasting protocols for a period of time for fat loss will also see improvements in these, because they are obviously keeping themselves in a calorie deficit. So it has nothing to do with the fasting itself. Eating after you work out. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the importance of eating after you work out, but it's important to know that the myth that you have to eat right after, or the thought that you have to eat right after you work out, is a myth. Like, if you are somebody who doesn't want to chug a protein shake while you're coming off the workout floor, you do not need to chug a protein shake while you're coming off the workout floor. Like, the main thing is understanding the importance of post-workout fueling. But if you don't eat right away, you're not all of a sudden going to be muscle wasting. I will talk about the importance of making sure that you're getting good quality calories and good quality proteins and carbs after your workout, but it doesn't really matter that much in the grand scheme of things. Another one in terms of fasting is that intermittent fasting burns more body fat. Okay, so like people are like, oh, if I'm fasting, then I'm burning more fat. Well, you might technically be burning fat, but you're not burning body fat unless you're in a calorie deficit. So intermittent fasting does not improve fat loss unless calories are controlled to put you in a deficit. So for instance, if I decided to fast from 9 o'clock on today until 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, I might be in a calorie deficit for that day. But if the next day I eat too much or eat my calories back, I'm not going to be at any more of a calorie deficit had I just literally been consistent with my calories throughout the day today and tomorrow. So it doesn't really work for fat loss. unless it's helping you control your calorie intake. So some people prefer keeping their calories in a small window. I'm going to talk, going back to the whole 2 hours every day, why that might not be the best thing for everybody. Okay. So all of these are some of the myths you might hear. I think another one is talking about protein absorption. There is a little bit of nuanced truth to this, but I think that the big myth is that you have to be constantly getting protein every 2 hours or you're going to be muscle wasting. Your body is not that sensitive or reactive. Your body is designed to survive. And it's not going to all of a sudden start catabolizing muscle tissue if you're not getting protein every 2 hours. But protein absorption, and I'll talk more about this in the next, as I get going here. It is good to space out your nutrients a little bit. And we're going to start talking about that. So those are some of the myths I have heard. And there's probably a whole bunch. Judy put that after 12 p.m. she eats. If I eat earlier, I get hungry, if that makes sense. So again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's knowing where you're at in your journey. And if you're trying to save calories or you're trying to make sure that you have enough calories in the day because you're in a deficit, that might be a strategy. But honestly, your circadian rhythm, you probably should be eating when you first wake up if you're getting hungry. And I honestly just actually wrote an article that I'm sending out to my email list tomorrow about how one of the most important things when we talk about healthy eating is that we should all understand what it looks like to feed our hunger cues and appetite cues accordingly. And so I think that dieting, body composition goals, and all that stuff, we do have to be a little bit more intentional. But when you're getting to a place of maintenance, healthy eating truly is being able to honor your hunger and your fullness cues. And that's something that unfortunately, most of us don't ever get to experience because we're always eating somewhat mechanically, for lack of better terms. But anyways, so those are a lot of the myths that you can hear about meal timing. Well, let's talk about what matters most. All right, so I already mentioned that the number one thing that matters most when it comes to nutrition is your total daily intake, like how much you're eating throughout the day and the breakdown of those foods. So are you getting enough micro and macronutrients? Are you getting enough protein? How many carbs are you getting? How much fats are you getting? What types of carbs and fats and proteins are you getting? Are you getting good sources of those things? Are you getting enough fiber? Are you getting enough micronutrients? That stuff matters most. The meal timing just helps you space things out for a number of reasons. So while some people might say that meal timing doesn't matter at all, it does matter, but not for reasons of boosting your metabolism or making it easier for you guys or making you more fat burning or anything like that. All that shit is garbage. That's the stuff that we don't need to worry about. I want to tell you why meal timing actually matters. Okay. So first and foremost, regulating your energy levels and your appetite. Okay. So when you guys are eating more frequently throughout the day on a consistent basis, your energy levels will improve. You will have more energy throughout the day. So this can be helpful for fat loss, as I mentioned, because if you have more energy, you're going to be moving more. You're going to be burning more. You also feel better. Okay. Your appetite's going to be better. When you're getting consistent food coming in, you have things spaced out the way that works well for you, then your appetite is going to be easier to control. So for Judy, she works really well by eating a little bit later and she has good appetite control with that. Some people that would not work well with them because by not eating in the morning, it might trigger them to overeat later in the day. And this is where if you're not tracking calories, that's probably not the right method for you because it's easy to do that. When you're tracking and you're very calorie aware, it's a lot easier to do that because you can manipulate things very easily. Okay. But you have better energy and better appetite. When you eat at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning and you still feel like you're man, I'm still a little bit hungry. In the back of your head, you're oh, I'll have another snack at 10 a.m. So it gives you those natural cues of you kind of have a natural cadence to your meal. And you start to your body will start to expect things. It gets used to things that way. It adapts the right way. Other things is for sleep. Meal timing, as I kind of mentioned, aligning with your circadian rhythm can be very helpful. Having a very heavy meal before bed might actually negatively impact your sleep, whereas having something with some protein, some complex carbohydrates, a little bit of fat, somewhere between maybe 150 to 300 calories, depending on your size and your metabolism, actually might improve your sleep, because some people can actually wake up throughout the night because they get a reactive hypoglycemia, or their blood sugar just drops. That can help a little bit. But again, the heavy meal might not be so much, because if you put or if you're eating a really heavy meal before bed, your digestion might wake you up. You might have to go to the bathroom, and that could cause some sleep disturbances. So having a nighttime snack or a little meal might actually help you. What also matters, like I kind of already mentioned this with sleep, is kind of not listening to, but like eating in alignment with your circadian rhythm and your lifestyle. So if like you go to bed at 9 o'clock every night, like maybe you're always eating dinner at like 6 or 6:30. Like that's kind of in line with your circadian rhythm. You're waking up between like 5 and 6, and then you should be hungry probably within an hour to an hour and a half of waking. That's like a natural way to eat that's going to be best for energy levels, for sleep, for all of those things. And then also lifestyle. So everybody has a very different lifestyle. Everybody's commitments throughout the day is very different. So you want to make sure that your meal timing also fits your lifestyle. This is where the whole eating every 2 hours isn't really going to help somebody who's like, maybe they're a doctor or a surgeon and they might be in surgery for 3 or 4 hours. And so that's not going to be ideal for somebody like that, right? But it's also knowing how to like manipulate your routine around your schedule, so like maybe you eat breakfast somewhere between like 6 and 9 a.m. That's a big range, but you're getting that meal in somewhere in those 3 hours. Maybe you're eating lunch between like 11 and 2, like it's a big range. Maybe you're eating a snack between like 2 and 4. Maybe you're eating dinner between 5 and 7. Like you're spacing things out, but it doesn't have to be like this exact science. It's just kind of falling in line with your routine. Like, in fact, maybe you're a mom and like sometimes, you have to take the kids to sports and sometimes you don't. So you're taking the kids to sports. Maybe you have your snack a little bit earlier because, you're going to be gone for 2 or 3 hours. Whereas if you were home, you might just have it whenever you feel like having it that day. So it's looking at your lifestyle as well. The main thing is having a consistency, mostly in the amounts, the frequency of your meals, even if the timing isn't always 100% spot on. So, for instance, every once in a while, you might miss a snack, and shoot, you miss a snack. You're not going to die. You're not going to go into starvation mode, but you'll probably have it a little bit later in the day, right? That's okay. Or maybe you have to go for a blood test in the morning. Maybe your breakfast gets pushed back, so you're not quite hungry for your lunch. Like that's going to happen every once in a while, but for the most part, you want to have that consistent meal timing. And then the big one that I wanted to talk about today, which is probably the most important one for me, for all of you guys, is understand the importance of spacing out your meals for better nutrient absorption. So for Judy, this might also be helpful for you to understand why it might be important, if as you bring calories up, to go into maintenance, to actually have a meal earlier in the day. Guys, just because you're eating calories, this is where daily intake matters most. But just because you're eating calories doesn't mean you're absorbing those calories the same way as somebody else. And the amount of food that you're digesting at a time is going to change how much nutrients you're actually absorbing. So it is preferred for your digestive system to have like spaced out meals throughout the day. We were never designed to like have like one big meal. That's a lot on your digestive tract. And like, I always love to use the analogy of like a wood chopper, like if I am just kind of putting logs in consistently, it's going to chop things away pretty well. But if I suddenly like just throw a whole tree in there, it's probably going to clog the system, right? And then things are going to like slow down a little bit. You have to find that right balance for you. Better digestion is going to mean that you're going to be less bloated and have that like less gassy feeling. You won't feel like the food is just like sitting in your stomach. You'll feel like your digestion is moving really well. And it can also help with indigestion. So if you're somebody that has that like weird like burping sensation or all that kinds of stuff, spacing out your meals throughout the day is going to help with that. Along with a lot of our vitamins and minerals, especially our fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K, are better when our fats are distributed more throughout the day rather than getting them all at once. Fiber intake, another big one. Fiber is like, honestly, more people are talking about fiber now. It's about time. But it is a nutrient that is very helpful for hormones, for, detoxification, for making sure that your gut health is moving well. But too much fiber at once is also going to upset your gut. So by spacing things out more, you might find that you feel a little bit better. So, and then as I mentioned, nutrient absorption, when we talk about things like protein, okay, so protein, muscle protein synthesis is happening, throughout the day whenever we're breaking down muscle tissue and our body's recovering from it. And there is that myth of like your body can only absorb 30 to 40 grams of protein per day. However, there is a truth to the fact that like protein absorption can be influenced if your gut is like under too much stress and some of that food that you're taking in isn't actually being absorbed, it's just passing through. And this is why even with my client assessments, I do talk about gut health. Because if I've got a client that's dealing with things like IBS, with like constipation, diarrhea, things like that, meal timing does play a factor, especially with protein, because they might not be absorbing protein the way that somebody else with a very well functioning GI tract is. So we want to look at meal timing, not just from how is this impacting my calories and how is it impacting my metabolism? It's like, okay, how is my body actually absorbing the food that I'm consuming? I want to have my body absorbing and digesting things in a way that allows me to absorb as much of those nutrients as possible. So that's my big rant today on meal timing. Good morning, Jeffrey. Does anybody have any questions or anything about meal timing, meal frequency, protein breakdown, all of that kinds of stuff? Anything else to question on any of that stuff? Does anybody have any advice on when you are finally 40 years old and you feel a little lost all of a sudden in your life? Because that's totally how I'm feeling like this weekend in this weird place. Totally different subject, but I had to put it out there. But all right. Well, with that, I am going to sign off and go enjoy, I guess, the start of my vacation. I took vacation as of Sunday and I am trying to unplug a little bit. So I have scheduled myself a massage today and I think I'm going to go hit the water for a little bit and chill out, which is so not like me, but I know that my body needs it and my brain needs it. So if y'all need me, you know where to find me. Until the next episode, I'll talk to y'all later.